Okay, hey everybody. Hope y'all are all doing great today. Thank you for joining us for another live. I'm Kelley McKenzie, Longarm Specialist for Janome, and today I hope that I'm going to help a lot of y'all with talking about skip stitches, needle breaks, and thread breaks. Okay, and I'm going to try to really stay on topic and just talk about those things and not like tension, because we've done a tension video, but talk about some stuff that just coincidentally people are talking about today on Facebook. So I'm going to jump right in. So the first topic that I want to talk about is skip stitches, and I'm going to have my notes handy today so that I don't accidentally forget something. The first thing that we have to talk about when we're discussing skip stitches is to determine if it's an encoder issue or not. So first, let me tell you what an encoder is so that you understand, okay? Our machine uses an encoder, or encoders, because our machine has two encoders, when we are in regulated mode. Regulated mode is when our machine does the exact amount of stitches per inch that we've set it to do while we're quilting, no matter how fast or slow we are stitching. So if we've set it at 12 stitches per minute, that's what it gives us, okay? Those encoders, one rides on the side of the machine, on the carriage that the machine is sitting on, and one rides on the back of the machine on the frame that the carriage is rolling on, okay? And they have little black wheels, and I'm not gonna move my camera, but I'm just gonna kind of like try to give you the general area so that you can look at your machine. But the encoder for the side is gonna be right here, okay? And it's got a black wheel on it, okay? So to determine if it's an encoder issue or not, when you get a skip stitch, you're going to look underneath where the thread is skipped. So you'll have a big thread, but it'll have skipped, okay? And you'll look to see if there's little needle holes where the needle went into the fabric but just didn't complete the stitch, okay? If there are needle holes in that fabric, that means it is not an encoder issue, okay? If there are not needle holes, then it is definitely a time to investigate our encoders. So we're going to touch on that right now, okay? If there are not needle holes underneath our skip stitches, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make sure that our encoder wheels, the one on the side and the one on the back side, are actually making contact with the track and rolling, okay? Because if I were to lift up this wheel, it easily, I hope y'all can hear that, will easily just fall right back down onto that track, okay? Now, if you go and you look at your encoder, you're going to notice that it has a plug that goes into the back of the encoder, and then that plug travels and plugs into the back of your machine. The next thing that I would always do is unplug each end of that cable and plug it back in, just in case the connection has somehow disconnected. It could still be plugged, but it has some kind of disconnect. So I'd always unplug each end, plug them back in. And then I would carefully watch, like if I'm gonna be checking out this encoder, I'm gonna carefully watch that encoder wheel as I move my machine back and forward, making sure nothing's disturbing it. Now if it's that back one, I'm gonna walk to the back of my machine, move my machine side to side, watching that encoder. Now another thing with the back side is make sure that there's no cables that are getting in the way of it accidentally lifting that encoder up, okay? Now that one's tricky because I just did this when I was doing a rehearsal of this live. I noticed that when I moved my machine forwards and I was trying to move it sideways at the same time, that sometimes my power cable would lift that back encoder just a little bit, okay? So it was trying to trick me. So you need to watch for those things and just make sure your cables are not in the way. Do not zip tie anything, okay? Just carefully place your cables where they're not in the way. It is easily done. I don't have anything zip tied. I never have these issues, okay? So do not zip tie. Zip ties can damage our cables, okay? And we've had issues that have arose before and never figured it out until someone said, hey, are there cables zip tied? And I'm like, so what's the matter with that? And they're like, they can't do that. So learn from me having to have headaches of don't zip tie anything, okay? So there we go. So That's what we do if it's an encoder thing. If those two things don't resolve it, then it's time to call your dealer or get your dealer to contact me or something so that we can either get you a new encoder or a new encoder cable and figure out what's going on, okay? Now, if there are needle penetrations in between those skip stitches, now we've got a lot more detective work to do, okay? And I'm sorry, hey girl, hey Ashley, I'm sorry, but it is a lot of more detective work, okay? But I don't know if when you bought your Longarm they told you that you needed to be an investigator, but if you ever wanted to be an investigator, you are now. Just not the kind that investigates, you know, murders and stuff like that, which is what I really want to do when I grow up. But anyway, so we're investigators. We've got to figure out why our machine is skipping stitches. So the first thing that we're going to look at is our needle position. Is our needle dead center straight on? Is the eye of that needle tweaked a little bit? If it is, let's turn it dead straight on, and then let's see if our machine starts skipping stitches then. If it's still skipping stitches, then let's just see if we tweak it to 5:30 or 6:30 and see if that helps at all, okay? If not, then turn it back to 6 o'clock dead straight on, okay? Is that needle brand new? And then all of a sudden you started getting skipped stitches. If it is, take that brand new needle out and put another brand new needle in. I'm going to say this, I have said it in multiple videos, but 1 in every 6 needles manufactured is bad. There is no quality control with needle production. If there was quality control in needle production, needles would cost $10 a piece, and none of us want to pay $10 a piece for a needle. So we need to be happy paying $10 or whatever it is for a pack of needles, and be okay that there's going to be 1 or 2 bad needles in that pack, okay? And go on with our merry self. But change that needle out again and see if you're still getting a skip stitch. You will be shocked at how many times just a new needle, even another brand new needle, will give you no skip stitches, okay? Now, is your needle in backwards? Typically, if your needle's in backwards, you can't even get it to stitch. But there have been occasions where some of you have gotten really lucky, put your needle in backwards, and it's still stitching, but it's skipping stitches. When I've put my needle in backwards, and I have, it won't even stitch for me. So just make sure, let's have a needle class. Now y'all are gonna look at my needle and go, why is her needle gold? Because this is a needle that I used to buy, and I only use them when I have to, but it does work in my machine because it's in the right family. I'll talk about that in a second. But I want you to notice that this needle, I gotta put my glasses on, hold on. Okay. You see that dip right here in the back? That's the back of the needle. If you were to turn and look at the front of the needle, is it too close? You can't see it. Okay, the front of the needle has what I call a slide or a ditch all the way down the front of it. And it's where that thread travels down all the way to the eye of the needle. Okay, so that's the front of the needle, okay? And the dip goes to the back, okay? So our needles have a round head. Okay, but when you are buying needles, you need to make sure that you are buying a pack that has 1, 3, 4 on it. Our needles are in the family of 1, 3, 4. I don't care what all this says down here. It just needs to say 1, 3, 4, okay? Now these are size 16 needles right here, and generally that's all I use, okay? Now, slide or the ditch is the front of the needle. Make sure that's what you've got facing you at 6 o'clock, okay? My notes. Okay, so the next thing on my list is your needle bent? You can't really tell sometimes if your needle's bent unless you've really done a doozy on it, okay? So again, the only way to really know is to just switch out your needle. Does your needle have a burr on it? Sometimes that's hard to tell too. Switch out your needle. Is it dull? Okay, let's talk about dull needles, okay? Some of y'all don't believe me on this, so just learn the hard way, okay? Whatever. But you need to change your needles out every quilt. Now, I'm going to be sensible with you. If it's baby quilts, yeah, do 3 baby quilts and then change your needle out. I'm not going to be dramatic on you. But if you're doing a twin size quilt, dump the needle, okay? If you're doing a t-shirt quilt, definitely dump the needle no matter how small it is. If you're doing a batik quilt, dump the needle. Batiks are so hard on your needles, okay? But if you're just doing cottons and you're doing a couple of baby quilts, you can get a little bit of use out of that and do 2 or 3 baby quilts and then dump the needle. But otherwise, dump your needle after every quilt. A needle is the cheapest thing that we can replace. If that needle goes down and because it's dull, it hits your hook and it damages your hook and your hook has to be replaced, let me give you a news flash, people. A hook is not a warranty item. It is a wear and tear item, just like your tires on your car. And it is not a cheap item to replace. So if that stupid dollar needle damages your $500 hook, you're gonna cry your eyeballs out. So make sure you're changing your needles. Okay, I'm gonna quit too on the Sunday sermon, I'm over it, okay? So needles need to be changed. So last week I talked to a dealer who had to change out the hook. That was not a fun situation, okay? Because again, let's talk about this. I love y'all, so I'm not yelling at y'all, and I'm not getting on to y'all. But I just want you to know, I want to give y'all a scenario here. We all go out and we buy these cars that cost us, if we're lucky, $25,000, but they're way more expensive now, right? And we don't blink an eye about replacing the tires, doing an oil change, replacing belts, doing air filters, and all these other things. But when we buy a $20,000 machine, we absolutely lose our crap if we have to spend another dime after that. But you got to remember, these have wear and tear items on them also. Most stuff is under warranty, and we have nothing to worry about. And the first year, you really have nothing to worry about because even the labor is free, okay? But we have to remember that this is just like buying a car. It's going to have maintenance, and it's going to have wear and tear items that eventually have to be replaced. And because of usage, sometimes we just accidentally break things on them. Not intentionally, nobody does it intentionally. So just keep those things in the back of your head. Because we don't like it when we have to charge you for something you broke. We don't want to do that. We want you to be happy. We want to be happy. I hate telling a customer, hey, we got to replace your hook, and it stinks, but it's expensive, okay? We don't want to do that. So let's replace our needles. Did I say I was going to quit preaching? I'm done now, really, I am. Okay, so the next thing on my list for skip stitches is pour thread. Now, I know that most of you are using, probably 99% of you are using good quality thread. I'm going to just talk to you for a brief second about that. Do not go to Walmart, Joann's, Hobby Lobby, any box store and buy quilting thread. Most likely, it is not what you need, okay? Do go to your local quilt shop and buy their quilting thread. Not just to support your small business, but because they most likely have good quality quilting thread. Now, I have always preached it has to be quilting thread, and now I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I learned just like y'all do, and I learn from others every single day. I have discovered from shopping at a dealer store that I have found an embroidery thread that I love to quilt with. I know. It's called Isocord. Okay. Next time I go to a dealer who sells this thread, I'm going to buy a lot of different colors because this is the only color I have right now. This thread does not lint. Lint is our enemy. It will cause us to have shredding, bread threads, all kinds of stuff. This does not lint. So, and it's just been great. I like it, okay? Okay, so I'm also a big, huge fan of Superior Omni, okay? But it does lint, but I'm still a big, huge fan, okay? If you want to see, here is my wall of Omni, okay? So do I like Omni? Yeah, I do. Okay. Now, 99% of the time, that's what I use. Now, every once in a while, I have to use some specialty threads for different specialty stuff. I've used invisible threads literally a handful of times. Okay, and when I do, I have a big spool of it, I use the Aurifil invisible thread. It works really, really well. Okay, I can't say enough about this. Now, I don't like invisible thread, but if I'm going to have to use it, that's what I use. Now, I'm going to also go against a lot of what people say in the industry. A lot of people will say, you can use any thread you want to on your machine. All threads can be used. And I'm going to say, sure, if you have the patience of a saint, go right ahead and try to use any thread you want to. But if you're like a normal human being that has zero patience, find a thread that works for you and stick with it. So if it's Omni, great. If it's Glide, great. Whatever it is that you love, just stick with it and be happy, because that's what we want to do. We want to quilt and be happy. That's it, okay? Okay, so, So that's what I use on top. And I've told y'all this before, but I'm just repeating it. In my bobbin, I only use pre-wounds. And yes, sometimes you do get a bad pre-wound bobbin, okay? My favorite pre-wounds are Deco Bobs by Wonderfil. They do not lint. They are an 80 weight thread. They are awesome. I would solely use them, except for they won't create one last color that I need for my bobbins, which is lime green. Wonderfil, please create lime green pre-wound bobbins if you're listening, okay? But since they don't, I still have to go to Superior Threads and buy Super Bobs and get my lime green bobbin thread, okay? So that's the other bobbin thread that I will use as pre-wounds. Again, hey Jay Nash, again, you use what you love. And if you love winding your own bobbins, good for you, you keep doing it. Because it's all about what we love for us, okay? Okay, so that's our thread about skip stitches. Use good quality thread, okay? Now, this is gonna be hard for me to show you. I'm gonna get my camera a little bit closer. Okay, and I'm gonna go down. This is just temporary for a few seconds here. I want you to see that I have my thread not threaded yet in my needle. Another thing that causes skip stitches is your top tension being too tight. Before you even thread the little guide before your needle, take this thread and pull it. You see how smooth this is pulling? I'm barely, there's tension, but not a lot. You do not want there to be a lot of tight tension when you're pulling that, okay? Here, let me get you back where you were at. So, we're gonna test our tension before we ever even thread it through the needle. If it's tight through there, then go ahead and start loosening that top tension. Big turns, quarter turns, half turns, not eep, eep. Go ahead, listen to me. Quarter and half turns. Turn them, babe, turn them, okay? Because if it's tight there, it's gonna break your thread or skip stitches as soon as you start sewing. And guess what? I learned that when I went to Longarm training by the experts, okay? So they do that before they stitch too, okay? Okay, so skip stitches are also caused by your top tension being too tight, okay? And then of course, I don't know why I put it last on my list because it should be first on the list, but of course, if you're getting skip stitches, you should always, always rethread your top thread from the spool and rethread your bobbin, okay? Just go ahead and do it, get it over with. Because wouldn't that be awesome if that's all it was? I know it probably won't be, but wouldn't it be awesome if that's all it was? Sometimes you get lucky and that is all it was, okay? Okay, now, a few more things that cause skip stitches is bulky seams, okay? So listen to me. Now, bulky seams can be a nightmare because they can turn into something else. So, if you have a quilt that has 8 seams coming together and all these intersections, and you have a piece backing that's got lots of back pieces. It's not just two pieces of fabric sewn together. It's like my backings. My backings look like another whole quilt top because I've used all my scraps to piece a back. If you've done that, you need to take that backing and you need to press all your seams open. Just take the time to do it. Make it those as flat as you can. If you can cut some bulk out, cut bulk out. On your quilt top, if you've got lots of seams coming together, press as many of those open as you can. Because not only will it cause a skip stitch, it could also cause, which is what our next topic is, it could cause your machine to get jarred or not jam. It could jam it, but it could get it jarred and jarred just enough that it slightly messes up your timing, where you're gonna get a skip stitch until you take it to your shop. Okay, so what happens is it hits those seams just right, and where there's a screw up in the top of your needle bar, and it can jar it in that spot just enough that it moves it a half a millimeter, and that can cause you havoc. Okay, or it can move. There's two screws that hold that hook in where it needs to be in the bottom of your machine, and in this exact spot. And all of our adjustments on these machines are millimeters, okay? And it could just move it just slightly, and just slightly will cause you havoc. So press your seams open, okay? Oops, I dropped a note. Okay, so let me see if I told y'all everything so far on skip stitches. That note's done. That note's done. Ooh. I don't think I said this one. I should be marking these off as a thing. Another thing that causes skip stitches is if you have an applique quilt with stabilizer in it, okay? So I love Steam Seam 2, whatever. I've used it before, but I'm not a big applique girl because it just takes too long. I'm one of those, give me 3 pieces of fabric, let me cut it twice and sew it back together and make a quilt top. Like, fast and easy, quick and done. So I only have a few applique quilts. I only have one applique quilt. Yeah, one. Okay. But I have quilted many applique quilts for others, and there have been times where either the stabilizer something was wrong with it, or it got overheated so much that it got gummy, and so every time my needle would go down into their stabilizer, it would get gunky, and as it got gunky, it would start skipping stitches because the thread would stick to the gunkiness on my needle and would cause it to not make the stitch. And I have read, I have not tried, that some people say if you mist it with warm water or steam it, that will help correct that. I have not tested it. Test it if you want to, or if you have a suggestion and you've experienced this, please put it in the comments. But I have not found a resolution for that except for to wipe my needle down with alcohol every freaking second, okay, and get the sticky off. But as soon as I wipe it down with alcohol, it's just a few stitches later, it's got gunky on it again. But sticky stabilizers will cause your machine to skip stitches. And then once you change that needle and you change it to another quilt, you'll be fine again. So if anyone else has better resolutions for that, please also put it in the comments for us, okay? Okay. That is it for skip stitches. Okay, so now let's go to my next topic, needle breaks. Okay, so one thing that will cause a needle break is just a simple thing. If you just didn't put your needle all the way up into the needle bar, okay? And we have a solution for that. If you have not noticed, if you'll go look to the left side of your needle, you're gonna see that there's a sight hole above it, where you can see when you're putting a needle up, there's actually a place where you can see the top of the needle. And you can make sure that it's up in there. And if it's not, then you know that you need to push it up some more, okay? So, because sometimes people are scared to loosen that screw that you put the needle up and tighten it back, and they haven't loosened it enough, and they think they have because the needle has stopped going up, but they haven't. So there's a cute little hole right here on the needle bar where you can look to make sure that your needle's all the way up. So just make sure that you've inserted your needle all the way up, because if not, it goes down too far into your hook area and hits that hook and causes a bad mess, okay? Okay, and of course, if your needle's breaking constantly, like every time you put a new needle in, it breaks, then most likely your hook timing or needle bar height is whacked out, and there's nothing you can do to fix that but take it to a technician, okay? Because you don't know how to fix that, and it's a tedious. I mean, it's not a hard repair because we do this kind of stuff all the time, but it's a tedious repair, okay? So your hook or needle bar could be out of timing. Also, again, we talked about this a little bit earlier. Make sure you're using needles that are in the family of 1, 3, 4. Okay. Okay. Sarah says that Diana, I can't say her last name, Kleppy, Rachel, Francisco, Sue Tasker, great videos for some common issue. Oh, is that people that have videos? I'm not sure, but look in the comments, people, for maybe the stabilizer thing. Okay. Let's see. Oh, and then, of course, the most common thing that breaks our needles is us doing ruler work and hitting a ruler or hitting a pin that we've got pinned to our leaders. And unfortunately, sometimes those things can also knock your machine out of timing. So be super, super careful. Make sure that if you are doing ruler work, you are using a true ruler work foot. People think that that closed-toe foot that comes with our machine is a ruler foot, and it is not. It has not got the high profile that a ruler foot does. Our ruler foot is called the EZ ruler foot. The letter E, the letter Z, ruler foot. If you cannot find this online, call your local Janome dealer and have them order you one. They know what it is, okay? Okay. So those are things that cause needle breaks. Also, you're just sewing too fast, you're going to deflect that needle. Needles deflect, they move from you moving it so fast that it can't get out of the fabric fast enough, and those can break your needles. Those can cause all kinds of issues, so don't sew too fast also, okay? Now, that's it for needle breaks, okay? I hope I'm not talking too fast, but I don't want to like lose your attention, so I'm trying to make sure that I wanted this to be 30 minutes and I'm already 28 minutes in. I wanted to do this like you know the preacher on Sunday when he talks too long and then you fall asleep. I don't want that to happen with you, so I'm trying to be fast. Okay, so breaking thread and fraying, let's talk about that. So there's a couple things that can cause that. Again, your top thread just being too tight. So go watch my tension video. Also do the little pull test that I talked to you about earlier in this video. The incorrect size of needle with the thread. If you have a 20-inch machine, you can go and select the little I that stands for information on your screen, and then you can select needle and thread chart. And you can look and see what weight thread you're using, and it'll tell you what size needle to use. So I'm just going to call this out for you. Oh, okay, sorry, Sarah, sorry, you were just tagging those people. Sorry. Okay, so if you are using a 60 weight thread, I'm sorry, yeah, 100 weight to 60 weight thread, you should be using a size 12 or 14 needle. If you are using a 60, 50, or 40 weight thread, you should be using a size 16 needle. If you are using a 50, 40, or 30 weight thread, you should be using a size 18 needle. If you are using a 30, 20, or 12 weight thread, you should be using either a 19 or size 21 needle, okay? Now, if you don't have a 20 and you need that information, I can take a screenshot of that and post it on our Facebook page. In fact, I will do that no matter what so that y'all all have that information, but I'm sure you also can Google that and find that information and all. My camera's not working. I'm not tech. Okay. I'll take a picture and post that. Okay. Now, this one I would say is not necessarily going to be the case, but you could have bad or old thread. I have been quilting since 2007. And some of those spools of thread that I showed you on the wall earlier are that old, and I still use them and have no issues with them. But I do use a very good quality thread. So I would say, yeah, it could be your thread if you're using a crappy thread, but my thread's really good. So, but it could be that thread, okay, that could cause your thread to break or fray. Okay, and a good way to test that is if your thread breaks real easy, like, see, I can't, it was really hard for me to break my thread. I mean, like, my fingers feel like they're fixing to bleed from where I burnt myself trying to pull the thread. If your thread's really easy for you to break with your hands, then hey, it definitely is your thread, okay? So test that, okay? Let's see here. Another thing that breaks your thread and frays your thread are burrs, which we talked about that earlier. Burrs on the bottom of your sewing feet, burrs on your needle plate. Burrs, burrs, burrs fray thread because they catch on it and they shred and they break and they fray, okay? It could even be where your thread, it could even be where your thread has traveled so much through pieces of your machine that it's caused an indentation in it and it's gotten sharp and it's shredding your thread there. Now, you would have to be an avid user and use it a ton, because I have only worn out one spring on my tension unit so far, and I've never worn out the other parts to where it started doing that to mine, but it is a thing that can happen, okay? Of course, Jenny did a video just a few weeks ago on our spa day for our machine. Another thing that causes fraying of thread and shredding of thread and breaking of thread is if you have lint in your tension discs or lint anywhere, it gets in the way, things happen. Lint's your enemy. Again, if you use less linty threads, things are better. Okay? And then if you have your needle in backwards, like a lot of things that cause thread breakages and frays also can cause skip stitches, so we've talked about some of this already with the skip stitches, but make sure your needle's in correct. Always make sure your needle's in correct. Let's see. Making sure that I have touched on everything. I think I have. So I'm going to be like that preacher that looks at his clock and go, oh my gosh, you still got time to go get fried chicken before everybody else. I only went 3 minutes over. Okay, so I hope that this video helped you. I hope that this will solve some of your problems. I hope it solves the girl's problem that I was trying to help earlier today on Facebook. I thank you for joining us. I think Jenny's going to do next week where we've discussed it. I'm pretty sure she's going to do it, but one of us will be doing it next week. I appreciate you joining us, and if you've got any questions, remember you can always reach me either on Facebook or by email at kmckenzie@Janome, America.com. I'm always here to help you. Yes, sometimes I turn my phone off after 5 because I need a break, but I still try to look at Facebook in the evenings and answer questions. So if you need me, message me or whatever, and I will help you. Because I love you folks, and I love my job, and I want to keep helping y'all. I want y'all to be happy with your machine, because I'm happy with my machine. So have a great day, and we will see y'all next week.